I'll never forget when I'm on the NFL Network draft set in Radio City Music Hall, and RG3 had already been drafted by Washington, and then your name gets called in the 4th round. And I just looked around. I'm like, what just happened? And I'm wondering, were you surprised when you got drafted by Washington when you did back in the day, Kirk?
Yes, I think what just happened was the line that was going on in my family room as well. I tell people that of 32 teams that were picking that day, I would have told you Washington was the 32nd most likely to take me. It was a head scratcher. That moment where you would normally be celebrating with everybody in your family room, it was the opposite. It was just kind of a low energy surprise. I guess I'm going to Washington. Feels like a dead end kind of a thing. So obviously it all worked out. It took a little longer than I would have wanted to have it all kind of work out, but certainly this NFL career has been an interesting journey, and it started with going to Washington.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're entering year 13 now after 6 years in Washington and 6 in Minnesota. And the 6 years in Washington, you had to really earn everything that you got as well, opportunities, and then contractually as well. So I guess, like, just looking back then and informing you now, how were you able to make the most of what you got, not knowing when you were going to get it, Kirk?
Well, it was a major blessing to go to Washington. I did not know it at the time. I don't think too many people in the league knew it at the time, but to go into a building with Mike Shanahan as the head coach, Kyle Shanahan as the play caller, Sean McVay's down the hall as the tight end coach, Matt LaFleur is my day-to-day contact as the quarterback coach, Mike McDaniel's the low-level assistant basically helping out. I remember Raheem was the DB coach, but those guys, the guys I all named, when meetings would end in the spring and there was kind of some open time in the afternoons, everybody would kind of make their way to the quarterback room. And I knew if I just kind of hung around in the quarterback room, there would be some unbelievable football discussions going on from a bunch of young guys who weren't much older than me. And I guess I assumed that's how every NFL meeting room was, but I learned that was the exception, not the norm. So to be indoctrinated into pro football in that environment, it paid dividends immediately in my development as a young player, which is such a big part of having a successful career is, do you get off to the right start? But then to this day, I mean, my head coach today was one of those guys. So, it was a major blessing to end up there, even though in my, limited perspective, I thought it was a dead end.
So McDaniel was getting you coffee? Is that what he was doing back in the day, Kirk?
He wasn't getting me coffee, but I'm confident he was getting somebody coffee. And his office was pretty much like a closet. And, and he worked his way up in my years there. He ended up being receiver coach. But there's no doubt that, he was printing stuff and going to the copy machines and, getting call sheets made for Kyle and, the basic quality control stuff. But he also knew football really well. We would have some really good discussions off to the side, during practice. So just so grateful that I got to cross. And I told Mike that when I saw him, we practiced against the Dolphins last week, and post game after our preseason game, went out and shook his hand and just told him, how much I appreciated his impact on my career and how much I, respect him and am not surprised of his success as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know if you saw what Tua is saying, and I know this is not your table, but Tua talking about the power of a coach believing in you, and saying that. And that's been a big topic of discussion in our media world over the last 24 hours. And I'm wondering, could you give voice to that and who those guys
could
are?
I ever?
Please, go for
I
it.
absolutely can. It never really was in the culture at some of the places I've been to, really praise you or tell you where you stand. But when I got to Washington, I remember I got motioned into the head coach's office by the assistant to the head coach. And I thought, oh, no, I'm in trouble. And this was after, 7 or 8 weeks of the spring practices. And Mike Shanahan said, just sit down, Kirk. And I thought, here, I can't even go to the summer break without getting in trouble. And he said, Kirk, I just want to let you know that, what you've done this spring has been really impressive. I think you're doing a great job with your reads, your progressions, your throws. Really proud of you. Everything we thought we were getting when we drafted you, we believe we're getting. Just wanted to let you know that and give you that feedback that we're really excited and we think you have a high ceiling and da-da-da. And he said, you're good to go. And I thought it was like a prank or something because I was just not used to that in my football upbringing. But I quickly learned that staff, that culture was to give you that feedback. And that still permeates to this day with Raheem. He's a cheerful coach. He enjoys coming to work, and it reflects in the way he treats people and talks to people. And so I can agree with what Tua said. I remember Mike McDaniel gave me a book when I went home for that summer break. He said, go read the book, Talent is Overrated. And again, hadn't had coaches who recommended books for me to read in my coming up, but Mike recommended that book. I read it, learned about what it means to have deliberate practice from that book. And to this day, when I practiced against the Dolphins, I said, hey, Mike, thanks for recommending that book. Deliberate practice kind of changed my life and changed the course of my career. And Mike said, yeah, when I recommended you read the book, I didn't realize you were going to take it to heart that much and live it out for the next decade. So those coaches continue to have a huge impact on my career.
Oh, I thought you were going to say an actual current Dolphin would turn around and go, wait a minute, he told me to get that book just last week. Because I'd imagine he could do that.
I'm sure he's still recommending it.
I love that. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.